Okay, folks. First of all, just want to apologize. I sound probably a little bit froggy. I just got back yesterday from family trip to Alaska, and I'll be darned if I didn't pick up the COVID and imported it back to Idaho. So, doing fine. Just head cold, that kind of stuff. But here on Labor Day afternoon, thought I had a little bit of time, some leather cased up for the next part of the saddle I'm working on and stuff. So that'll be ready to go tomorrow. I'm big on casing leather overnight if I can. And just wanted to do a little tutorial here as our flower of the week. This is a border as our flower of the week this week. So the wheat sheaf border that's very, very popular, and you see that in engraving and that sort of thing, and I'll show you how I execute this design. And I laid that out just a few minutes ago just to make sure I got my width proper right there, because what is more critical, there's just a lot less room for error with this, because you're fitting that wheat sheaf border within a space that has to work, whereas you got room between on that other border stamp that I showed you with that serpentine or fleur-de-lis or Carlos, whatever you want to call it. There's a little bit of forgiveness in the width between the double cut lines, the beaded borders. With this, not so much. It's pretty important to get that nailed. So what I've calculated, I think, here is got a couple of lines laid out here, and those are 7/16 inches apart. So that's, and then I'm cutting into on the inside of that line, so it's closing up the space. And I've got my hair blade that I've showed you before that is just got the middle lines ground out of it. And so see, I come back, and as you can see, I'm laying down that cut line. I'm moving my whole arm. Of course, this is not a fingertip activity. You get lined out for where you want to be, and then you just pull straight back, and that helps stabilize how things, rather, getting your fingers into it like you normally do with swivel cutting. That doesn't work so well for trying to lay down straight cuts. So here, once again, I've got my cheap craft tool, tickler, whatever you want to call this. Opens up the cut. This is always a little bit awkward. I got this camera set up to do this. I'm doing this in a kind of pulling toward myself in a way that's not real natural for me, but we'll get it done. Gotta go slow enough so that you don't jump the tracks. If you do case leather, of course, you're gonna run a line off. You're gonna destroy your integrity of the cut lines right there. Of course, I do it all the time, and that's where some of the stuff that I do here, you've seen me do it before, you'll see me do it again here on this, is there's ways to get this kind of shaped up and sort of massaged and doctored up so that you wind up with things pretty clean and straight, and not mar up your beaded cut. Okay, so normally the way I set this up is see if I can see what's going on here. Use a little bit heavier mallet. This one is probably, it's a Berry King, probably 24 ounce, maybe little bit heavier than what I normally stamp. With a set stamp, of course, I'm asking more of the tool. So what I'm doing here is just laying the heels of that tool right in between those two lines, centering them as best I can. Now I might back up just a moment here. This is a Jeremiah Watt tool, but I have modified it, and something that you hope you can see, I filed off the outside of it, because what was happening, hopefully you can see that, was these lines were extending out to on the sides right here, clear back to the heel. Those dress cut lines right there, maybe you can see it right there. You can see where my file has begun, and I just filed that off because I wanted it to fit. You want it to fit easily within. You don't want those lines to be splashing off into your cut border. So I just felt like I needed to modify this tool in that way. So I've got more or less a straight edge that also corresponds with the side of the beaded cut border right there. So this takes a little bit of an eye. Yeah, see, I'm a little bit getting off into my border there just a little bit. So what I want is for my point to be going straight down the path. I want the point to be right in the middle of that pathway right there between those double cut borders, and where I begin, the heel of the back edge of this tool, I correspond it pretty much with right at the tip, right at the end of those dress cuts right there on that tool. So right about there. Sometimes I kind of take my time getting going so that I kind of develop my feel, my eye for where I want that to be. And same thing as always. I don't grip this tool in my left hand tightly. I'm only gripping it no tighter than what is required to control it. And I don't have hardly any downward pressure on it. I'm letting the maul do the work for me. All I'm doing is trying to locate the tool where I want it to be. Okay. I usually start pretty slow, and if I often have a long line of this going, then I'll kind of get into a rhythm, and that can go fairly quickly as things go along right there. Okay. Next thing I do is, as you can see here, I laid down a little nice, that's a Don King, probably available, same tool available through Berry King, but just a nice little border stamp on there. It's got a nice straight edge that I can lay it right into that opened cut on that bead. I suppose if not a lot of the progression I have here, I suppose I can't really make a big case for the progression of how I do this. I'm just kind of in the habit of doing the outside border like this before I start doctoring up the middle part of the wheat sheaf. Okay. Okay, next. You come in, remember this tool right here. It's got that long beveler that I made in school years ago. Smooth, just an old craft tool, beveler, and it's got that little bit of a, let's see, it's got a little bit of a curve to this face. I'm not a fan of a lot of straightness across there for any of my bevelers, for that matter, because then you wind up with you're likely to have a square edge, a beginning and an ending. Makes it hard to do, but you can't have it too much either. So the bevelers I've gotten from Barry and Don King and Bob Beard have been, I think, an appropriate camber to that curve to that end, and then we've ground it out, filed it off, polished it up to have that, so it gives this rounded treatment right here. Just lay it in there with that curved business end that's in that cut. It makes it fairly easy to just track it along as slowly as it is required to kind of keep it on track. And same thing, you don't want this to get off the tracks, or you might wind up with taking a modeling tool to try to take out some of the tracks that you didn't want to put in there. You can see there's a difference here between these two, and that difference is none other than this one of the favorite shading tool that I've got, that F916 craft tool. Once again, I've filed off each side to narrow it up just a little bit, and so I come in here and same thing. I need to kind of get it going straight down the road here. So I'm tipping it back on its heel a little bit. To me, it helps sort of accentuate things with this wheat sheaf. Otherwise, it seems like it's got a fairly large vacant spot in between each of the wheat sheaf tools. So I come in here like that. So there you have it, the wheat sheaf border.